Now, occasionally I make a video like this to really go over common core questions that I get on a regular basis. Since recently I've had an incredible amount of more followers because a couple of my videos have actually gone viral. It's important to review a lot of these questions. And if you're just following me again, I was married to my wife Amanda for 25 years, and she passed away 4.5 years ago from alcohol use disorder. And a lot of this page is talking about, the stories and just the things we went through as a family, and so much more, because I've spoken all over the world on this subject. Some of the biggest questions are, what was her core problem? Why did she drink? And it was really threefold to answer that question. I mean, it was a hereditary issue. It definitely ran in her family. Her grandmother died from it. Other family members had issues of it during parts of their life, and some still do. It also, the hereditary issue, but it was also family culture, unfortunately. I mean, her family drank wine with dinner. They all drank Chardonnay, certainly when I met them. And it was just part of what, the environment that she grew up in, which is about 50% of the reasons why people drink. When you grow up in an environment of normalcy, it's normal to drink. There's a real high percentage that you may have a problem later in life, especially if you have a hereditary issue. And the third one, which Amanda had, which was she had some trauma when she was about 16. I go over it in her book quite a bit, and I'm going to go over a little bit more about her book and what some of the updates with that. And the thing with her specific trauma, well, you're going to have to read the book to get the real specifics, but when she was 16, she had a boyfriend, and some things happened, and her parents separated them for a very good particular reason. He was 19, she was 16, and they sent her away to an all-girls school in Northern California, and she was really torn away from the family, and she was made to separate from her boyfriend, who at the time she loved very much, and I think she needed that kind of love in her life. And it was something that she really never got over, unfortunately. I met her 14 years after this event, and she was still crying on my shoulder. I remember in the first few years of meeting her. And it wasn't about the breakup, it was just about how her family reacted to it, and that she was kind of shunned from her family. And I think that was something very painful for her. Just kind of that feeling of being rejected by your family, by your parents, by the two most important people in your life. And I think that's really what it came down to for her. It was a big part of how she developed this disease. And another question I get all the time is, what was my role in her alcoholism? Was our relationship part of the problem, or was it me being an ogre or something like that? And people don't realize how insulting that really is for family members, because the family that you marry into is rarely the problem. It really comes from your childhood. It becomes from your developmental years, the family that you grew up in, the family that you come from. And unfortunately, when you marry somebody, you don't know the baggage that they're taking into that marriage. Unfortunately, we had a very good marriage. That's the thing. We were the best of friends for many, many years until the alcoholism really broke that down, her as a person and our relationship. And unfortunately, that's what alcohol does. It destroys everything: health, productivity, and relationships. And it's a very difficult thing to deal with, especially if you've never had a whole lot of exposure to it. Like, I really didn't have exposure to an alcoholic. I didn't really even understand what it was in the early days. And I think this is some of the problem, that we didn't get her help until she started getting DUIs around 2014. And in reality, we probably should have got her into a rehab 10 years earlier. And I've talked about this pretty extensively. That's why it's so important. It's one of the reasons why I make these videos, is for prevention. Is for people to recognize a family member is in crisis and they need to get help. And the family needs to create boundaries to put, and that's really all they can do, and direct that person towards recovery the best way they can. But it needs to come out of the closet, needs to be talked about, needs to be exposed, rather than not talking about it, because it will get worse and worse. It's a progressive disease, and it's not going to go away on its own. And another question I get was, how old was she? Well, she was 58, and she's right in line with the average life expectancy for women. Women live between 53 and 58, statistically on average. So you're losing somewhere between 20 and 32 years of your life compared to the national average. And it's very unfortunate. I mean, you're losing a big chunk of your life that you could have had. It could have been wonderful years. And when someone dies from alcohol use disorder, and I've talked about this, it's not just that person. It affects our son. It affects me. And when our son gets married, she's not going to be there. When our son has children, she's not going to be there. And it's unfortunate because there is that hole there that will always be there. In fact, her niece got married 2 weeks ago, and one of her beloved nieces, and she wasn't there, and we had a picture of her there, and we're all thinking of her, but she wasn't there because of this disease. And just to give a real quick update on this book, it's called Amanda, A Cautionary Tale of Alcoholism. Very important book. It's really from the family perspective, but it would also help alcoholics, obviously, understanding what's going on and their, how they're influencing the people in their lives and not necessarily the healthiest ways. The book will be out in a couple of weeks, but on PayPal, depending on when you're watching this, this is the 21st of November 2024, we're going to have a PayPal link that I will send out to anybody that signs up, who's on our email, and I'll have it all over the place. You can actually pre-order it, and then the books will go out the following week. Probably the first 10, 15 days of December, the book will actually be sent out. So it's important to get a pre-order. We anticipate, a pretty decent volume. I've been talking about this for a while. But here it is, Amanda, A Cautionary Tale of Alcoholism. You'll be able to pre-order them next week. And again, thanks so much for listening.